Good evening and welcome to the Raymond Budget Finance Committee meeting. The meeting is now in order. And to begin the evening, we will have training with the town attorney.
Yep. So I just want to welcome Matt Tarasevich back, and he'll be conducting your training tonight from Bernstein Shore.
Again, Matt Tarasevich, I'm pleased to meet all of you. I don't know how many of you were here. I think it was about 2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago.
Yes.
I actually looking for something else on my phone today and found when we were having it here 2 years ago.
2 years ago, so well, I'm happy to be back and really glad to see all of you. How many of you were on the committee at that time, or you knew? You were here. Who's new?
I'm new.
Today. There you go. How many of you have also had freedom of access training? You've had it?
Yes.
Have you all had freedom of access training? Okay, well, one of the things we'll go through is during this hour, because I'll try and make sure that we stay on times, is that as a elected member of the budget committee, you're required to have freedom of access training. So you have to have that. So I can provide that as part of what we're doing here today, and then you'll be certified as having received that training. I'm sorry.
You can move that. I had to bring that in today.
I don't know what that is.
That's fine.
Per statute, you're supposed to have that training. And so I'll provide it, and then you'll be certified. And you should keep a copy of your certification at town hall. This is so.
Is there a signature page at the end or anything?
There's not. I can email it to you.
Okay, that's fine.
I can provide it to you. It's on the state website. Okay, so I'm going to go through some basics. I'm not going to go dive too deeply. You're certainly welcome to ask me questions, but I'm going to try and move through these things. And whenever we talk about any type of training of this type, of your rights and responsibilities as an elected board member.
This is the new one.
I always start with the statutes. So you have a packet in front of you, two packets. One is the freedom of access training. I'll hold that off to later on. The other one is this bound packet, and that contains where I start off is with statutes that may apply to you, or which are things that you should know as an elected official. They might not be directly on point for what you do, but they're things you should know and understand because they might come at you somewhat in a related manner. So the very first one is something that's not directly on point to you, but I always focus on this because I think it's good body hygiene, so to speak, is 2635 statute that talks about select board acting as a body. You're not a select board, you're an elected body, but you are a body of the town. And the direction in this statute says the intention is that the select board should act as a body for all matters that they deal with. That is also true of any elected committee, whether you are elected or appointed. You should always act as a body. And what I see is a problem in the past is when boards, committees do not act as a body, and you begin acting as individual agents. Now, you're all elected, you all have certain agendas and things you want to see accomplished, but when you're here together, you're acting as a body. Okay, you vote as a body. And if you make a decision as a body that not all of you agree to, well, majority rules, and that's what it is. But the problem I see often, and the purpose why this statute was put out there by the legislature, is to give a warning to elected bodies to act as a body. Because when you don't, if you act as a free agent, you get outside your lane, bad things can happen, and that can be, in some cases, liability can attach to you because you are essentially, as long as you're within the authority that's granted to you as being an elected member of the committee, you're fine. It's when you do things outside, you're acting outside the scope of the authority, then you can get in trouble. I'm not going to give you any examples of that, although I could. But there have been instances I've been involved in over the years representing our many towns that we represent, where elected members of committees or bodies have decided that they're going to take it upon themselves to begin to act. And one of the easiest examples of that is elected officials who believe that they can basically order around the town manager's employees, that they think they're entitled to get information, and that because you were elected to a position in the town, that therefore you have some sort of authority over other people. And that's simply not true. You have your authority and your charge for what you do on your committee, and that's it. But all too often, people make the mistake of thinking that because I got elected to a position, and this applies to a select board, to an elected budget committee member, whomever, that they think now that they have authority and power that they actually don't have. And when that butts up against other people's rights, that's when, the rubber hits the road and, lawsuits start flying and complaints start coming out. So I just want to, I don't think I can emphasize that enough, although I will move on. Stay in your lane, do what you've done. You have an ordinance, which we'll look at in a little bit, an ordinance that's directed to the Budget Finance Committee. Stick to what's said in there and don't go beyond it. If you have a question or an interaction with anybody else in the town, then I think you should, particularly if it's a town employee or anybody else, direct it to the town manager, and you'll probably get good guidance on that. But be very, very careful there, okay? I've given this training many, many times in many, many communities, and I've always said the same thing. Do what your charge says you do, but your interactions with others can come back and bite you. So be very careful and get direction if you need it, okay? Next one I want to focus you on is 2605. That's the next page in this pamphlet, and that's the conflict of interest statute. And the very first thing I want you to focus on that is that that votes avoidable if they are involved in a conflict of interest. This statute says if it's a pecuniary interest, like you have some money involvement, direct or indirect, that can be voidable. There are other parts of this statute that also says other votes can be voidable if you have some sort of something that could be considered a conflict of interest. So I particularly want to direct you to the second page of this, subsection 6 of the statute, that says, and I'll read it to you, avoidance of the appearance of a conflict of interest. Every municipal and county official shall attempt to avoid the appearance of conflict of interest by disclosure or by abstention. And this is really important because everybody wants to have good faith in their government that the people they've elected to do their position is doing so acting in a manner that's fair to everyone. You might not like the outcome of it, but at least it's fair, and nobody's self-interested in what they're doing. So to the extent you feel like there's anything you're ever dealing with that there may be a conflict of interest, if you're discussing a topic or an item and somehow you're interested in that, either financially or otherwise, the proper thing to do is to disclose it. Tell everybody, I've got a concern here, and I want you all to know it. Disclose it publicly, that I have a concern. And in 99% of the time, it's probably not a problem. But you've done your duty under the statute by telling people that it could be a problem, and I want you to let me know it. And the rest of you can also then discuss it and consider whether or not this is something that the person needs to abstain from voting or discussing or having any type of role in that discussion. So it's important to do that. And by the way, it's the appearance. It's not just actual conflict of interest. It's even the appearance of it. We want the public to know that even the appearance of it could be problematic and could lower people's trust in the actions and decisions you're making. So you just want to get that out there. So what do? You disclose it publicly. I have this concern. And if you think somebody else on the committee has a conflict of interest, it's your obligation to disclose that as well. I think somebody may have, can we talk about this? Get the information out there so everybody has confidence in your decisions. If there is a conflict of interest or there's something that somebody should do it, then its abstention is the next thing. And if you feel there's something, an agenda item or something you're talking about that you have some either direct conflict of interest on, or it could be the appearance of it just doesn't look good, then you abstain. And by abstaining, you say, I'm going to abstain on this issue. Doesn't mean you're abstaining on everything. It's just on this particular issue, I'm going to abstain. And when you abstain from somebody, you should get up out of your chair and walk away from, the table here. Just walk away. You don't have to leave the room, but you should walk away, because that signals to the public that I'm actually stepping away on this issue. And if you step away and you're sitting in the audience observing, which you can do, that's not problematic, you shouldn't be getting up to the podium and then giving your input as a, now I'm a citizen. Before I was a board member a second ago, now I'm a citizen. No, abstain, sit back, allow whatever happens to happen. And then when that issue is, next issue on front of you, you can return to your seat. It's a problem. If you know there's a real conflict of interest and on the board and somebody isn't willing to abstain, you do have the right as the board to actually vote and remove somebody. Typically, I've only seen that happen once or twice in my career, when somebody would not step away when it was pretty clear that they had a conflict of interest, and a full board voted, you need to leave, you need to step away, and then you should step away. Most people are people of intelligence and goodwill, in my experience, and if they realize this, they hear it, even if they're really aware of it themselves, they'll step away. It's not really a problem. But it's disclosure, abstention. Okay, so this is an important statute, and I'll also just remind you, it's so important that if you look at your ordinance that governs this committee, it's referenced in your ordinance. The conflict of interest. This statute is referenced in your ordinance, okay?
How does it apply to bias?
Bias is a different issue. Bias is, everybody has a bias. Bias is bias that is also connected to a conflict of interest, either because you're related to somebody or you have a financial, that's a different issue, but everybody has a bias. It's a bias that's improper, like you're never going to decide on this, or no evidence you hear, information you hear is going to allow you to consider it because you're so set in your mind. That might be problematic, but it's not bias. Bias is
But if
different.
I had a bias on a decision before a board I was on or a committee, and we were going to vote, would it be appropriate for me to abstain?
I think so. I think if you could not fairly hear something or consider something, I think that may be an issue.
Oh, right,
Do
okay.
we have a?
Well, I was just suggesting that this is a training designed for the board at,
Okay,
the
then-
board's expense, not the public's.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Then I'll okay. It was a good question, though.
Agreed. But
Okay. The last subparagraph 7 of this thing also talks about that the town can adopt a ethics policy, and you in fact have adopted an ethics policy. It's referred to in your ordinance, and I have attached a copy of the town's ethics policy at the very end of this packet of materials. So you have that. To the extent you haven't seen it before, the town is very helpful. They added a signature page there. So you should, to the extent you have not signed off on that ethics policy previously,
this is very bad.
you should do so, and return it to the town manager, and he will hold that for you.
I think we do sign this when we come for your election.
When you're sworn in, typically you would receive this and
Do you sign this? Cool.
okay? But to the extent you haven't got it, you've got it. But it's also always good to take a look at it. One of the things I found all too often in my career is that you look at something once and then you never look at it again. It happens. But it's all, this training is good, I think, for you, because we're going to get a chance to look at some of these documents again. You might not have looked at it. Some of you have been on the committee for a while. You maybe haven't looked at it for a while. Some of you newer members are looking at it for the first time or whatever. But it's always good to revisit documents They are the documents that govern the way you conduct yourself, so it's always a good thing to come back to them. But that subsection in the statute is referred to, you've got the policy, and it's referred to specifically in your ordinances. The next one I want to do, the next couple, really don't pertain to you directly, but I did put them in here specific for a reason, and that's the town manager plan, 2631, and 2636, the powers and duties of the town manager. And the reason I put that in here is related to some of the freedom of access information we'll talk about, but it's also because sometimes the town, under these statutes, the town manager, the town's employees are his employees. They work for him. They don't work for you. You might interact with them or get information from them. They might come to a meeting with you. They might provide information. You might need information from them or ask for information from them so you to do your charge. But they're his employees. You deal with the town manager, town employees, you deal with the town manager, and that's the only one you deal with. So that's number one, very important. Again, I've had too many instances where somebody's been elected and had negative interactions with a town employee, and the next thing you know, God forbid, we've seen harassment claims or sexual harassment claims, or something has happened because they are not happy with the interaction they had with an elected official. And that's what they may claim if that's what they believe happened, and that has to be investigated, and it's a whole process. You don't want to be in that process. If you got issues with the town manager's employees, deal with the town manager, and he will deal with it, and he will come back to you with whatever you might need to get. The other reason I bring this up is in meetings that you might have, and you hold public meetings and people show up, and there may be, and you're dealing with the budget, which deals with the departments, which deals with people a lot of times. And sometimes there may be concerns about people, and those people are town employees. And if there are complaints or charges against town employees, those should not be aired publicly. We'll take a look a little bit about under the Freedom of Access Act, Section 405, which deals with that, but I'm kind of previewing for that. If there's a meeting and somebody gets up and starts complaining about a town employee because somehow it may be related to the budget or whatever, we should be doing this. If it's against an identifiable public employee, you should not be hearing that. That should be, you've got a hammer right there. That hammer is going to come into use very quickly. Stop. We don't do that, because hearing those type of charges or complaints in public session violates the employee's rights. And you should not entertain that. Not only should you not entertain it from the public, you shouldn't do it yourself. If you in your budget discussions have a concern about a public employee, do not reference the public employee or level complaints about them. That doesn't mean you can't talk about the budget or the operations or all those things that you're going to get into. But if you're complaining about a identifiable public employee, that person has rights, due process rights, and rights of protection and confidentiality under the statute, and you shouldn't be doing that, okay? And that's what happens. Unfortunately, I've seen it happen a lot across my many years of doing this, and I give the same advice: don't. If you got a problem with somebody, don't say it publicly. Okay? If you got a problem with what an employee has done or said or complained, you take it to the town manager. That's their employee, and then the rights and the process for dealing with that will then kick into gear. But from the public, no. From you, don't do it. Okay? And because if you're violating somebody's rights by saying things about them, then you've made yourself a target for a complaint against you. So don't do it. Okay? And I think most of the time it's somebody in the public. That's when it really happens. I appreciate that you probably would never do that. People in the public don't understand that. They're not getting this training. You are. And your role is to say, stop. No, we're not hearing that, okay? So that's the reason why, I just want you generally understand that the town manager's role and his authority over basically everybody who's employed by this town, okay? So that leads me into kind of a preview of the freedom of access training. And the next statute I pulled from this packet. You've got it in here, in your packet for freedom of access. We're not going to look at that right now. But the thing I want you to understand, again, and highlight this, is under Section 405 of the Freedom of Access Act, we have executive sessions. And I don't know if there's a circumstance where you all would have an executive session.
The question came up in the past. I would say I answered to the best of my ability in the moment, but when they were considering appointments, because they were filling an elected vacancy, they had asked if they should go into executive session. I think in the moment we made the right choice, just because, again, it's an elected office, so you don't really get to do that
Yeah,
behind closed doors anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But after speaking with you, you do have that authority when it comes to appointments.
Yeah,
But-
and so subsection 6 of 405 goes down, and it says right there, 6A, and one of the things in there is appointment and duties and things of that nature. So those are all things that can be heard in executive session. And one of the misunderstandings of this statute in particular is that you can go into executive session without a person being present for all these reasons, like appointment and things of that nature. The person does not have to be present. You can do that without notifications to them or them being present. That's fine. A lot of misunderstanding of that and misreading of the statute because it's badly written, okay? Just put it out there. It's poorly written. The second part of this, that very long run-on sentence says, or the investigation or hearing of charges or complaints against a person or persons subject to the following conditions. Now, I don't believe there'd be a circumstance where you would ever go into executive session to hear charges or complaints against anybody. But what I just said a few minutes ago is why I want you to know this, is because under that statute, that a person who has complaints against them or charges against them, they do have rights, and those rights are to have those type of charges and complaints heard in executive session, and it won't be by this body, because if it was something that might reach the select board, for example, but it won't be here. So you, again, will use your hammer if anybody's making a charge or complaint against it, because this statute provides a mechanism for somebody who has charges and complaints against them to have it be heard in executive session away from the public, okay? I'm just saying, you hear charges and complaints, the hammer comes out, and we stop that discussion, okay? I'm only piloting it for that very reason. The other reason I pull up 405 is because it has a very kind of a throwaway sentence in this statute under 405-6A that says, at the end says, this paragraph does not apply to discussion of a budget or a budget proposal. So it means basically you're not going to an executive session to hear a budget proposal or a budget discussion. That stuff is always in public. And they put that there specifically because I think in the past, at some point, somebody wanted to go and talk about a budget in executive session and not let the public hear what they're doing. What you guys do, you're doing in public. It's a very public exercise, okay? So the statute says you can't do that specifically. Not that you would, but it says you can't.
Yeah, my guess is people probably tried to get around that loophole by using the budget as a way to maybe reduce headcount for not performance reasons. So if you're going to talk about maybe reducing headcount for budget reasons,
could be,
or talk about it in open.
Could be.
Yeah.
I'm not going to speculate. I just think we know we can't do it, so we're not going to do it. And the statute says you can't. So that's a good place to stop there. A lot of these other things I don't think are really terribly relevant to you until we get to skip over a couple of them to 408A, public records. This is also under the Freedom of Access Act. This is Section 408A of that set. And it talks about public records. And Glenn, are you the public Freedom of Access officer?
I believe Mel is the FOA.
Mel?
officer,
Okay.
the clerk.
Mel
And
is.
she's on. I don't know if she's doing the minutes or paying attention,
Okay.
but if she wants to chime in, she can. But I believe Mel's
Okay,
the FOA officer.
but that's fine. The town has a Freedom of Access officer. which means none of you are freedom of access officers. You are elected officials. You are connected to the town, and in your travels, either here or outside or at the coffee house or whatever, people, or by correspondence or a phone call or whatever, people may ask you for documents that you either have or have access to, and when they ask for that, that is a freedom of access request. And all freedom of access requests for public records should be conveyed to the freedom of access officer. You should not promise to get them. You should not deny it. We're not doing that. All you do is you get the request, you pass it on to the freedom of access officer and say, I got this request, here you go. You can't, if somebody approaches you looking for records, you can't ask them, why do you want them? You can't ask them who they are or what are you going to do with them. You just have to say, I understood. I'm going to pass this on to the access officer, and then you're done, okay? So it may never happen to you, but it could, and this is part of your training and under the Freedom of Access Act, is that if you get a request for records, you pass it on, period, and let somebody else handle it. Because I can tell you, a lot of things you might get may not be a public record, and this 408A says right in the title, public records. And public records under Section 402 of the Act is a very specific document, a definition of certain things are public records and many things are not public records. And frankly, it's not always clear. And so we shouldn't be promising to give anything to anybody until the analysis is done. Is the document you're asking for a public record, and therefore, or is there some statutory provision that says it is not a public record and therefore does not have to be provided, okay? So you don't want to get into a discussion or make a determination of what is and what is not. You're simply going to take that request and pass it on to the public access officer, and then there may be a legal analysis, and there's also provisions under 408 as how long you have to, the town has to, what it has to do, how long to give it to somebody, whether they can charge for it, all sorts of things that are connected to that, which luckily, thankfully, you just have to get the training and learn to say thank you and pass it on, okay? And that's all you need to know. You don't even have to make the determination whether or not it's a public record. You don't have to do that. Somebody asks you for something, you say, I'm going to pass it on to somebody else, okay?
When you say pass it on,
Just
do you
convey
just
it.
mean this is how you get it? Like,
No, you're just saying, somebody says, I want the budget committee report from 2016. Okay, I'm going to tell that to the public access officer, and they will respond to you.
but why do we have to, if somebody asks me, like somebody could ask me for documents all day just to,
Sure.
so every time somebody asks me for a document, I have to go to Mel and say, this was requested.
Yep.
Then
Then you do nothing. You're done. Your assignment's done. Because you are an elected official in this town, subject to 4-year training. So you are somebody that somebody could ask for records. You don't have to provide those records. Your only duty under the statute is to make sure the public access officer has that information, and then will examine it and make a determination of whether or not they get it, and how they get it, and when they get it, and where they get it. But you are somebody that somebody could ask. But you have no duty to actually give them the records. Matter of fact, you don't have a duty, an obligation to give. You only have the obligation to have the person who the town has elected to be their access officer to get the information to them.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you say back, a little while back, that you said that we're not allowed to ask them who they are, why they want it, what they want?
Right.
So how do we know to tell Mel who to respond to?
Well, it's a tricky thing. Well, a lot of times you may get it, say you get an email on your town-issued, hopefully town-issued email address, okay? Saying, I'm interested interestedRaymondResident.com. That's who I am. I want these records. Give them to me. You don't know who they are. You just know, and you have to actually respond to that. They don't have to tell you who they are. They just have to, you just have to respond to it. You pass that on to the access officer. It happens all the time. There are people who, you know, the last few years have been people who have traveled around the state of Maine. They're called freedom of access warriors, and they'll just come into the town office and start asking for records. And if you ask them who they are, they go crazy.
I think we had First Amendment auditors today, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can't ask them why you want, and people make the mistake asking, who are you and why do you want it? And then they're off to the races, filming you and saying you're violating my rights. So you get a request from somebody, and if somebody face to face and says, you know, I want these records, well, how am I going to get them to you? How are we going to get them to you? I'm going to pass this on to the access officer, but you're going to have to make arrangements with them to get these things, because that's not my role.
Are we allowed to tell who is the access?
Yeah, sure.
So we'd say then,
Yeah.
to protect us, we would say then you would have to reach out to the town and speak to our
Yeah,
Mel.
it's fine. It's fine to pass on her name.
So we can give her a name, but I mean,
but
'cause we can't ask
would-
their name.
But I
period.
would, no, I would give her a name, but I would also, if you have specific information, most of the time you're gonna know who they are.
Correct.
Just say, you know, I'm gonna tell Mel, this is what you want, and you can work with her to get it. And then you pass it on, and then you've done your duty.
So what if we get an email and we can reply to the email like you said that we should, because we've said.
I would
that
not
we-
reply.
Would not reply, okay.
If interested Raymond person.com or whatever at gmail.com emails you and I say, I want these records, I would forward that message to Mel, and then you're done. You're done. Okay? It sounds kind of weird. I know, you look on your, I see you looking back. It's a really odd thing. Because you have an obligation to receive things, but not an obligation to do anything other than pass it on.
I know, I just saw, if I go to Good Life Market, someone comes up to me and says, you don't know me, you know, I want this information. I go, all right, I'll go talk to Mel, then say, Mel, somebody asked me for this information. And then, you know, it just seems like an odd thing where anybody now knows this, they're gonna come up to me and bog me down for
Yeah.
the fun of it. It's just odd.
I can only tell you that it's very entertaining to see the freedom of access warriors, to see what they post online, because it's
You can watch the YouTube video from today. I don't know who the guy was, but he came in
it
and
can be
did his thing.
entertaining.
YouTube video that was done today.
They come in with their phones and they make demands and they do their
Yeah,
thing.
sometimes they're rude, or
That
sometimes
actually
they're
happened in Raymond
confrontational.
today?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
I was not
So
aware of
in-
that.
I
case
had my door closed, but they generally, and I won't get detracted with the First Amendment audit stuff,
No,
but
it-
generally they come in, if there's a door open and it's not restricted with employee-only access, they'll just walk through the door. I had it happen during a department head meeting, like we were here, the door was open.
Yeah.
They sat in and said, I'm not leaving, and I said, all right, I guess, you know, we didn't close the door. So they tend to just do that sort of thing, or if there's stuff on your desk and it's not, they go, I want that, you know. And
It's-
I have a right to have it. So generally the practice is keep the door closed, employees only beyond this point.
signage and warnings and things, but,
Yeah.
you know, confidential information. But the thing is, if you're ever confronted by a person like this, you know, they're not wrong. They do have the right to ask for this information. And it's the kill them with kindness. I'm sure Glenn's staff has been told.
We have
Kill them with
training on it,
kindness.
so,
Yeah, be nice to them. Don't deny anything. Just receive the information and be very nice to them. And most of the times they'll go away. Yeah, but if you're rude or confrontational back, then it's off to the races.
So, and Sean, he just said about he met somebody at Good Life. Shouldn't whoever's response, of ours response should be, our representative is Mel to the town office. If you want to have information, reach out to her, because, I mean, we can't,
That's fine.
if we don't know their name, you know.
Yeah, that's
we're-
fine. That's fine. That's a
So in
fine.
other words, we're not obligated to carry that to her, as long as, especially if we can't ask them their name, is to say to them,
It's
we have a person at our office that handles that.
I've used the example of somebody you don't know who they are, but that's a pretty rare event. Usually it's just somebody wants something and you know who they are. You know, how can I help you? And you just pass on the information. Okay.
So, okay, what you're saying is kind of different than what you're saying
What you
to
said,
pass
no,
on
correct.
to Mel, where you're saying
I would say pass it on. I would always pass it on. Because you
To
want
pass-
say,
If you don't know them, you can't.
I gotta, but you can give her name. This is who's our access officer, but I'm gonna pass this on, your request on to them.
that's what I'm saying. This is the different. So
Mm-hmm.
just to bring the point home, it's like, yes, I can say I'm going to pass it on, but when we say, like, we can't just say Mel's our, go talk to her. We need to actually put the request into Mel.
I would pass it on. If you received a specific, pass it on.
Okay.
Then you can always say truthfully.
Is that what you were
I
kind
passed it
of?
on.
Yeah, is that what you're getting at? Because I think
Well, I mean, if you know them, obviously, yeah, you can say, and I don't know if we have the right to say to Mel, hey, Bill said to us, he wants to get this,
Yeah.
because we know his name.
Yeah,
But are
that's
we
fine.
violating him
No,
by, because
no,
we know
no.
him, we've given his
No,
name
not at all.
to Mel?
Yeah, no, that's fine. If Bill Jones asks you for something, says, I want this document, thank you, I'm gonna pass it on to Mel. And then you
But-
do it.
But if we don't know it, the best thing for us to do to cover ourselves is to say that we have a representative at the town office, and her name is Mel.
Or the
Reach
town
out to
clerk.
her.
Typically,
Town
you can
clerk,
just
or
say
the
the town
town
clerk's
clerk,
office
yeah.
will help you.
Yeah. I don't wanna belabor it, but it's, just pass it on. You've done your duty, pass it on. Okay? But it happens. You may get this type of request, so, okay? So, I think that's, the next thing I wanted to focus you on, just as, again, I know you guys probably recite it back to me, is your ordinance that, for your committee. And as I said at the very beginning, acting as a body is very important. You have certain charges that you are required to do, set forth in Section 5 of the ordinance, and that's what you do. You, as a body, you do these things. So I caution you for the 10th time, be very careful about acting outside of the body, of being out in the public as talking about things. Act together. As a collective mind, you'll come to a collective action. But acting individually or commenting publicly about things is probably not wise. And that's the advice I give to everybody. On Section 6, I just want to again point out to you again, conflict of interest statute is referenced, and the code of ethics is also referenced. So this is, we're gonna, a lot of belt and suspenders here. You're cross-referencing these obligations, okay? I've also included for you a copy of the personnel policy. Now, you're not town employees, but certain parts of this policy apply to you as elected members, okay? And on page 9 of the Article 7 of the personnel policy, you'll see this page, it refers to integrity of service. And I think that is, although talks about town employees avoiding of actual reasonable result and create an impression of using public employment for improper purposes, that's pretty close to what the statute says on the conflict of interest statute. And it's pretty close to what your code of ethics say. So I just highlight this for you so you all understand. Everybody's operating in one way or another who is connected to the town of Raymond under the same operating principles, that you're going to act ethically, fairly, not do anything that is of a personal interest, but it's always for the betterment of the town. And so I want you to understand everybody's, not just you, but everybody's operating under the same advice. I also want to point out to you on page 28, and it leads on to page 29, 30, 31. Article 26, if I can read my Roman numerals correctly, is the prohibition against harassment, discrimination, retaliation. Now, it's probably pretty rare that you'll be in a situation where this might apply to you. But let's be sure it does apply to you, that because you do interact with members of the public, you do interact with town employees, and you interact with each other. And so this article and the following one, which is Article 27, which is sexual harassment, these all apply to you. They do. You don't have, as an elected official, a free pass on harassing somebody or discriminating against somebody, or sexually harassing somebody. All these things apply to you. You also don't have a free pass to retaliate against somebody who might appear in the public and you don't like what they say. All these things expose you to potential liability. So it's important that you understand and read these sections and understand they apply to you, because it's happened in the past where I have been called in to deal with situations, either my town or been hired separately as an independent investigator for another town to explore allegations that an elected official has harassed somebody, has discriminated against somebody, has retaliated against somebody. These apply to you. So my thing is, don't do it. Don't do those things. Act fairly to everybody. Treat each other well. And if you have any type of concern that maybe I've done something or said something that's inappropriate, stop, think about it, and and get some advice. Either through the town attorney or through the town manager could advise you as well. But I want you all to know, I have defended these claims where elected officials have, for whatever reason, have been accused of these type of activities. And one example I can give you is a elected official who continually went into the town office looking for materials, looking for information, to the point where the employee was upset by it, was complaining about it, and then ultimately filed a sexual harassment claim against the elected official, saying that the continual presence in the town office, going in there, demanding things, the female employee felt threatened and felt there was some sexual component to it. I'm not going to tell you whether that's true or not. I'm just saying it resulted in a claim that had to be investigated and then defended. And so you do not want to be in the situation where somebody is making this allegation against you. If you need something from the town office, ask the town manager or whomever, you'll get that information. Rest assured you'll get it. And by the way, if you're looking for information, probably the rest of you are interested as well. So that's not a bad thing to want information, to want more information about things. It is unwise, I can tell you, if you are directly interacting with town employees in order to get things, or if you're in the town office constantly, like every day, looking for stuff, because the presence sometimes leads to the, maybe at times, perhaps incorrect assumption by somebody that you're there for some untoward reason, okay? Rest assured, I don't believe any of you would ever do this, but I'm telling you, I get paid to defend these things, and I see probably once every year or so, some elected official, somebody is filing a claim against them. So
it's a broad range, like you said, of this, and it is some things that you would not even believe to think about that is doing as much as me touching Glenn's shoulder. I mean, if you are touching somebody inappropriate. I mean, I've been on a lot of these committees that he's talked about, on safety committees and stuff, and some of the things, and I've been involved with the union and non-union businesses and employees, and it's crazy, some of the things you can do that will get you in trouble. I mean, it's scary.
You have to have
It's
some
unbelievable.
situational awareness about when you're around other people. But it's, you ultimately don't put yourself in a position where anybody would ever do that. You act professionally, act, in your role, and interact with the town manager to the extent you have to. Just don't put yourself in a situation where anybody would ever make this type of allegation against you. And you'll be fine. But it happens. Whatever reason. Okay? So those are the two things I wanted you to in the personnel policy to understand. This is something that it could come back to you. So you've been warned and you've been trained to where to look and to read and basically not to do it, okay? And and as part of that policy too, if you feel that you have been a subject to harassment or discrimination or something like that, the policy also contains information about who you can complain to. You know, if you have to make a complaint, you can do so, and have your rights vindicated and protected. Okay. The last document I want you to look at again is the Code of Ethics, and again, this Code of Ethics cross-references things we've already talked before. Particularly number 9 is basically a conflict, a warning against conflicts of interest or the appearance of impropriety. He gets this again. He uses the word the appearance. It doesn't have to be improper. It just has to appear to be so. So, 11 references what we talked at the very beginning. No decisions on the behalf of the board unless expressly authorized by the board. That means you are acting as a body at all times. You're acting together. And again, 15 references, again, the conflict of interest law. These are all very good things to be aware of. It's one of those things, if you signed it once, I would read it twice, because it does apply to you. Okay? So, unless there are any questions from you all, I just want to quickly turn to because I want to keep you on, right?
You're good on time. We have a light agenda tonight, so if you
Okay.
guys have
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
And then, I'm sorry to interrupt before, but I was just reading the bylaws, but before you adjourn, if you want to open it up to the public, that's the way the bylaws have the workshop structures, so, just through the chairman, you can open up the topic to the public.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, Freedom of Access training to those who've had it before. This is a quick refresher course. For you who haven't had it before, you're getting trained right now. Public proceedings, you're all aware that you have, that you're required, if you're going to have a public meeting, you are going to have an agenda. There's going to be public notice put out so that people know that there's a meeting. The statute addresses that, how we do that. There is, that's the open meeting requirement. When you're a board, section on page 4 of this training, if you see it's communications outside of a public meeting. Let's be fair, you can talk to each other outside of a scheduled meeting. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the classic thing is, what can we go to a barbecue together? I might talk to somebody. Of course you can go to a barbecue together, or you can go to be at a ball game together, or whatever. It's conducting public business outside of a scheduled meeting that is problematic. Because if you get together outside of a public meeting and you start discussing agenda items or things that are in front of you that you may be making decisions or recommendations on, that's a problem. And that doesn't mean just outside of this meeting or outside of a scheduled meeting. It also means by doing it by email, communicating by group email on things that are things that should be discussed in public session and decided by a quorum of members. So I would strongly urge you not to do that, not to have email communications about things that are topics of discussion that should be done in public session. That doesn't mean you can't communicate, like, when's the meeting tomorrow night? Or can I get a ride there? Or what, kind of generic stuff is fine. It's stuff that is decision-making that should not be held. It has to be held in a public session. That becomes a meeting when you do that. So, you put your meetings on the agenda for a public session, you properly notice them, and then when you do things, you do it here in this room, okay? That's what the statute says.
Just a point of clarification in case I've been doing it incorrectly. I've always advised boards that if they're sharing information, like say they're prepping, I'm a board member, there's an item I'm requesting to be on a future agenda, and I say, not for discussion, I'm going to be including this in the packet, so you have a week to read it.
That's fine. That's fine.
So
There's no
information
deci-
sharing, I've always
That's
said-
that's information sharing, that's not discussion or decision-making. That's when we're talking about having a meeting. You are deciding something, or, no, you can't do that. But yeah, you can, you gotta get the agenda, people, or we're gonna have, should we add this to the agenda? That's fine. It's fine, because that's gonna be dealt with when it comes out in public, okay? Also, just to let you know, under section 402, we talked about public records, so therefore, things you say in emails to each other could become a public record. They could be discoverable under the Freedom of Access Act. So I would caution you in your use of email about things, to limit that only to things that, are appropriate, like talking about, should we be discussing, can we bring this up on an agenda item or whatever. But if you're discussing substantive issues by email, those emails can be subject to a freedom of access request, because they may be considered a public record. And they also, if there's ever litigation down the road, they could be separately discoverable in litigation. Okay, so litigation, a request for documents in litigation is different than a freedom of access request. Okay? In a freedom of access request, it's limited to what is defined under the statute as a public record. In a discovery request in litigation, it could be anything, whether it's confidential or not. It could be obtained potentially through litigation. You do not want to be creating information by emails. And by the way, that includes text messages, that includes leaving voicemail messages, that includes anything that can be, obtained. So be judicious in what you write, because first of all, I'm not suggesting you do anything wrong in that writing. I'm just saying you're creating records that could be something subject to FOIA, and then somebody's have to go and get them. Use only your town email for all communications, period, okay? No communications using any alternate email or anything like that. Use that only. That way, if there's a freedom of access request for anything you may have done, it's easy to get. The town can get it without having to start searching through devices and phones and iPads and other things. It's in one place, it's easy to get. It can then be reviewed and by the freedom of access officer, and then it can be easily produced. So please do that. No alternate emails or, whatever might be out there. Use what you have and limit it just to that, okay? It's for your own good. It's for the public good as well. Makes things very, very easy to do. Under section 404, the public can come here and record your meetings. I know you have meetings that are probably on public access, and somebody can come here and record you as well. I would just make a caution to everybody. We live in a strange world right now where everybody in the world has a recording device on them. I'm pretty sure one of you owns a phone. I'm pretty confident everybody you meet in the world nowadays has a phone. The phone, it can record you, it can film you. Be very careful, because Maine is a state where you can be recorded secretly without permission. Just be very careful about your comments in public. You're an elected official. This is my advice to you. It's kind of outside the scope of this, because you're not creating a public record by doing that. Somebody else is doing something. Very careful if somebody's approaching you and asking you provocative questions or things, or asking you about what you might decide on an issue, or, they could be recording you. And that you don't want to do that. Take your position seriously. This is not only good legal advice, I think good advice for all of us is, be careful about what you say, and you'll usually end up in a good place. I don't want to ascribe bad things to people, but people will do that. Happens all the time. Okay? We already went through 405, so you're aware of that. It usually doesn't have much to I don't think I have really too much effect on you, but just so you know, it relates back to the complaints and charges as people. You're not going to have that, because it'll end up someplace else. We also, you guys have a remote meeting policy, okay, so
Yep.
I won't go through that. And so, I've said this a couple of times, you don't have to know what a public record is, but the statute, just so you review these materials, there are statutory limitations on what is a public record and what is not, okay? And they are all over the various statutes of Maine, but the main ones are something that's been designated confidential. It's information about personnel. It's some information about investigations. It could be medical information. It's a whole gamut of things that all are protected. They're not public records. So if somebody's asking you for a public record, you're going to pass it on. You're not going to comment on whether the town even has it. You don't have to do that. It's just pass it on. But rest assured, there are many, many exceptions to things that are public records. And the town, in the spirit of this statute, will produce what it's required to produce. I can assure you, it will produce what is required to produce under the statute, and rest assured that if the statute says we can't produce it, the town won't, because they're not required to, and they're not permitted to. They're not going to violate somebody else's rights, if somebody wants to get it. The other thing I want you to know about freedom of access requests and requests for is a record is a record. The town doesn't have to create records. If somebody asked you to write something up for them, you don't have to do that. A public record is only the record that exists at the time that the ask is made. If it doesn't exist, you don't have to produce it, and you don't have to create it under the statute, okay? I addressed this earlier, but about anybody can make a public request for documents, pass it on. Again, don't ask them why, don't ask them what you're going to use it for, any of that kind of stuff. Just don't ask, just pass it on, okay? And luckily, you have a freedom of access officer. I've actually talked to Mel before. She's pretty good at this. She understands what to do, okay? If we violate the laws here, there's all sorts of penalties that they can come up to. They can sue the town. They can look for damages. They can look for attorney's fees. So again, that's why I'm suggesting you always pass it on. If somebody gives you a request for something, I've passed it on. I did my bit. You did it well. Once it hits the Freedom of Access officer's desk, there are statutory provisions about how soon we have to respond to it, what objections you have to make to it, and the statute spells it out pretty clearly in the section 488A of what we have to do. And the town will do that because the town, like all towns, respects that law and understands that it's meant to have like good governance and, kind of like a sunshine law. Everything that's out there that's permitted to be out there will do that, okay? I've also, finally, this isn't exactly on point, but that's the end of the freedom of access stuff. You guys have got it, okay? I've added in some things here that about conflicts of interest. Again, we went through that already, but I do want you just to understand, and if you on your own time review that, it's a very, very important conflict of interest. Avoid them at all costs. Disclose them if you think you have them, and then we'll take care of that by extension, and you should be okay. I've kind of sped through this because I don't want you to be here all night. Do you have any questions of me?
I do.
Sure.
Once the FOA officer has received a request, how much time do they have to respond? What's the deadline?
They have 5 business days to respond with a denial, and that denial has to include reasons for the denial, and citing to the statutes as to the various exceptions of why it's not a public record. So they have 5 business days. After that, if the town does have documents that appear to be responsive to the request, then the town has to give an estimate of time of when they're going to be able to produce those records. So say it's, yes, we do have those records, and it's going to take us 2 weeks to gather them, and we'll get them to you. So the big one is the 5 business days to, acknowledge the receipt of it, and then deny it if there's a reason to deny it. Or alternatively, seek clarification. Sometimes the request isn't clear. What are you looking for? It's not really, and you can seek clarification from them, which extends that deadline a little bit. But, so it's 5 business days. But you receive a request from somebody for something, pass it on right away, okay? Pass it on, because the clock is kind of ticking at that point.
To clarify, it's not 5 business days to fulfill the request, just to
No,
deny.
just to respond and to provide any specific denials of why it's not going to be produced. Okay?
So we basically have 5 days to acknowledge either way. Denial, or let them know that we have a time frame that we're going to need
Yeah.
to get that
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. It's pretty doable. It's not really a problem.
Thank you.
Okay? Okay? Very good. Thank you for letting me talk
You wanna-
took
Well,
your ear
thank you,
off.
thank you for being here tonight.
Oh,
You have a question?
No, I think Fred was asking if you wanted to entertain a
Oh.
public question.
Well, if you wanted to open it up to public,
That's your call.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Sure.
don't think a training is something that.
no,
Yeah, the bylaws do specify, though, that each item, at the conclusion of it, will be offered for questions through the chair.
Okay.
That's fine. I'll just say that as the town attorney, I give advice to you, not to the public.
Okay. I heard that. So I think we'll just leave it at that.
Very good.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
You're welcome. I would leave you again, every once in a while, flip through these things, okay? And if you have a question, I think you have the materials here, I think, that will probably answer most of your questions. If you do have a question or concern, before acting, I think you can ask Glenn, and if he needs to contact me to give you more specific, direct advice, I can do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. It's good seeing you all.
Take care, man.
Have fun with
Drive
your
safe.
assignment.
Don't forget to do your homework.
Karen, are you all set? Do you want to take a break at all?
you want to grab your.
I think we're all set. I think we'll continue to roll through. We have a light agenda, and we might as well keep on going.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 3 on the agenda. We do not have minutes to approve. Under the new business, I would like to welcome our newest members, Diana Foisland and Fred Miller, to the
Thank you.
committee. The Select Board voted last night to fill the vacancies and accept the recommendation of the Budget Committee, the nominations that we had made. So welcome to the committee, and it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to your input for
What are you
the
thinking?
upcoming budget sessions that will start next month. So thank you for being here with us and participating in the training right out of the gate tonight.
And that meeting is on the 18th, correct?
That is, that's up on the agenda at the end of the agenda to have the committee look at that. Under new business, item B, the FY '26 and '27 budget goals. I don't know if anyone on the committee would like to express any budget goals for this upcoming session. We had brought that up at the last meeting, and does anyone have anything that they'd like to input to that?
I just had that one change, Karen.
Well, that was my own personal,
Well, that's all, like I say, other than that,
okay.
that was the only thing that.
I had drafted some budget goals, and so I feel okay to read out what my personal were. I had looked for input from everybody else, but I didn't get any. The first one was not to exceed the inflation rate for the year which is currently at 3.2%. Another one of my goals, my personal goal, is to attend all of the RSU 14 budget sessions, based on the experience of what happened last year. Number 3, continued commitment to the improvement and maintenance of the town roads. 4, undesignated fund balance can be utilized within existing policy to accomplish our goals. And all budget areas are on the table for discussion and review. And the last one is core services driven budget. This was taken off, lifted from the proposed 25-26 budget goals. Okay.
I do have one more to add, because actually it was brought up and it kind of reminded me about traffic calming. I know that's something that's we've discussed a lot, and we had some things that were money to put into signage and everything, but I really think the town is still going to be demanding more than just the signage.
I agree. Traffic calming initiatives in the budget. Okay. Anyone else have anything that you'd like to add? All right.
Just for new to the area, I can assume where some traffic calming issues may be occurring, but what are some specific areas of town where you've noticed? But I just for operational sort of awareness.
It's really town-wide. I mean, we discussed Main Street. We discussed name any other.
Egypt Road.
Egypt Road. I mean, now we have fatalities going on there, so like that was kind of what started bringing it out. So those, I mean, just 85. I mean, you can just name any road. Is an issue. But those were some of the areas that we were going to focus on first. Was going to be Egypt Road, Main Street. I don't remember if we had it. There was, I don't think it was Mountain Road. I forget exactly
Raymond
what.
Hill Road?
Maybe it was Raymond Hill Road. Those are some of the areas that we were going to start focusing on first.
I'm trying to remember the name of the program, but there are some. I can get some probably DOT signs through some of the those radar signs for free through DOT.
Oh.
I've gotten them in the past. Yeah.
And I'd like to kind of, we're discussing this, is we had a lot of things we asked to get done last year, we're gonna get done, and that was one of them that never happened. And that would go along, regardless of what individuals think about how well they work, they do in fact help reduce the speed, wakes people up to what they're doing.
I believe Nathan already looked into, there's a whole thing, like that's why we were getting our own signs, because there was a sign, it needed a part, and the reason why we're getting our own signs is because you can't use their signs in the wintertime, which is,
Gotcha. He did mention today in passing that, I don't know if they're on order or we've received them, but there are some signs coming that came up today, actually.
We don't really have a budget for that here, right? I mean, we do have signs, but it's probably just for regular signage. I mean, there's nothing been put together for that yet.
I don't think it was in the, as a line, if you will,
Right.
in the budget last year.
Okay.
We discussed the issue at a number of meetings, and the select board also discussed it at a number of meetings.
Yes, they did.
Mhm. I assume this 5,500 is just for regular signage. There's nothing to do with the the sign that tells you speed or anything.
No,
like that.
I don't believe it is. They're that much or more each.
so I would have brought that up, except that last night's meeting actually reminded me of what a hot topic issue still it is.
Yes. Yep. Okay.
Karen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter.
Peter Levitt, 2 Levitt Road, just informational to maybe save time, would be that I did investigate, and certainly the interim town manager investigated as well, but I talked to the individual at MDOT about 4 months ago for the Southern District, and inquiring about whether they still had their program for providing either discounted or free radar feedback signs. And the answer was, no, that's gone away. So that is not available.
Thank you.
We did discuss it on many occasions, and I think the conclusion most people came to was the only way you're going to reduce speed is having someone stopping speeding cars. And we just don't want to face that. There are calming measures you can do, but they are back and forth. There's nothing that stops. If you want to see how to get speed down, go through Yarmouth.
Yeah, I know you said that exact thing, and there's no doubt that's exactly what it needs. We kind of talked to some, I guess the sheriff's department, and they were kind of like, well, we're kind of backed up, and Bridgeton, I think, was doing the same thing, and it was just like, the times that they did it, though, on Main Street, I was just at my computer seeing the guy pull probably 6 people over within like an hour or so. And you better believe after that, it was calm for a while. So I agree, like that, like signage is a good start. I think that's what we're kind of doing, was to get a good start. But you're absolutely right. There's nothing that's more effective than a police presence.
And that won't stop. There's evidence everywhere where you've got good police. You're still gonna have the violators.
That's true. But it will calm a
It'll
lot of it
calm.
down. I think there are many people in town who are interested in this subject. I've had a number of people speak to me about the subject. And I think they have to let the select board know that they are very interested in seeing the calming of speeding in the town. It has to happen through the select board, and people have to let them know that that's a priority for them.
The signs that we use now, just all they are is a warning, right? There's no recording, there's no nothing of that. So there's
Actually,
just-
they do record.
They don't record their vehicle and license.
They will pull.
They will.
Let me reword that just a little bit. They will record the license plate of the vehicle. It doesn't issue a ticket.
Right.
The ones on, and I'll use Fry Island, has got 20-mile-an-hour ones all over it now, that they've started with 1 or 2. And it actually will record the plate. So, again, when people know that, they're at least a little bit more aware. It won't stop it. I don't even say it'll stop it, but it does reduce it. I know, even myself, come up the River Road and come up on one of those, I didn't realize I was going that fast.
Ours are not up. Ours are not deployed yet. So I don't know if that was part of your question, but ours are not out in town right now.
And that's because that's wintertime, right?
Well, these were the reason why we picked these is because they were supposed to be deployable. They were supposed to sit up high.
Right.
And I'm sure Second Peter's going to tell you all about them, how you bring your phone up and get all that data from there. That's the whole point of them. But they are supposed to be used in the wintertime too, is what our understanding was.
But we don't have any right now.
That's right.
Right, we're trying to get some requested somehow or another, right? Nathan's working on it.
Glenn, what did Nathan say about them today?
I don't recall if they were on their way or here, but I can follow up.
Okay.
All right, Peter?
Sure, just to kind of bring Glenn up to speed, and I think you had the best comment at the last meeting, Karen, which is it's got to be like trying to take a drink from a fire hose. And believe me, I appreciate that, Glenn. So just a quick brief history as far as what we're talking about is enforcement. I don't disagree at all with the idea that nothing has more impact on speeders and violators than actually seeing a police car and actually seeing a few people get ticketed. Over a decade ago, the community explored its own police department. Some of you may remember that. It was pretty stoutly rejected, and a part of the arguments was the size of the force we would need, given our geography, is we're all mountains and lakes. So if you were looking for, let's say, recovering personal property from a break-in, the chances of that were going to be slim because response time was going to be down. We didn't have, I think, at that time, the issue of traffic as much as what we're hearing now. Not to beat a dead horse, but it's, well, as some of you know, is included in the comprehensive plan. That's where this kind of started from as far as the signs and stuff go. The data does show that those signs do influence drivers. Is it the cure-all? Does it take care of everything? It doesn't. We also investigated recently as far as could we get the sheriff's office to give us more time? And the bottom line is we don't, and I didn't know this, we fund the sheriff's coverage of the town of Raymond through our county tax. So there's no, and they have 8 or 9 different municipalities that they cover. And basically, the time is not designated through contract, so they don't give us any specific amount of time. It's where they're having activity at the time and where they feel that they need to put their force in place for the most effective enforcement. So short of contracting like Naples and some other communities have, of having additional coverage, the question was that they still, it was possible they wouldn't be able to provide any more coverage anyway because of their staffing issues. But anyway, that's a quick background of the enforcement part of it. But my understanding of traffic calming is that it's kind of similar to approaching, if you believe in climate change, is that you don't do one thing, you do everything. Everything that's in the toolbox you use. And so I think that would be the point of discussion in thinking about what monies need to be spent would be getting the information, a little bit more of the research of what the data is showing is what has the most effect, bang for the buck. And from what I found personally was that those signs do work. The reason we're going to the pole-mounted, as was suggested, is because the trailers can't be out there during the winter because the plows will just crush them. But a pole-mounted device, like you've seen in a lot of other communities around us, is basically the way to go. Depending on how the bells and whistles, it can simply be telling you to slow down. You're telling you what your speed is. If your speed is under or at what the limit is, some that will give you a smiley face, kind of like that. But basically, you can also collect speed data, more money, but you can collect speed data. And it's true, you could actually have them with cameras. I don't know how the public would respond to that especially, but once again, the amount of money that these things go up based on how many bells and whistles you have. Thanks.
I know, like Cliff said, when you're going down River Road, because I go down a lot, because I go to the prisons on weekends and stuff. It's good for the good people, because I mean, like you said, I don't realize all of a sudden, oh my God, I'm going that fast. I'm doing 50 and a 40, or a 50 and a 30. You know, it wakes you up and say, uh-oh, you know. But as far as pictures, I think now, when you go through, especially you go through Portland, a lot of your traffic lights now take pictures of you should go under it. So, I mean, I don't know if there's any legal reasons why we couldn't be taking pictures, or...
I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, but there have been constitutional cases for red light cameras and stuff, and I don't know what the status of that is. During this meeting, I kind of did a little research, and it looks like the Maine legislature is doing a pilot program to implement automated speed control systems in highway work zones, which would issue tickets from the automated cameras. I think Sanford was in the news recently for their AI cameras. I'm not sure what.
I think they took theirs out of service, if I remember.
Yeah, there's been a couple.
One town did and one town didn't.
I think you could have a whole meeting on that and probably a Supreme Court case at some point, but I'm sure the technology exists. Whether or not you're allowed to enforce it remains, because we don't have a police force either, so who would issue, like, or would they just sort of, there would be, yeah, but if you implemented a speed sign that issued tickets, are they just sort of like debt that you're, like, you know, you send it to a collection agency and hope someone pays it? Or, because I think we do issue parking tickets at Tasseltop and we get revenue. I think we got $300 in parking ticket revenue. But I don't think there's a mechanism to recover because we don't have a municipal court or prosecutor or anything. So
Tassel Top and the beach there, the boat launch. That's where we
Yeah.
collected it. But like you said,
Yeah, the mechanism is just, I think you could just put someone in collections and ding their credit. Maybe you could boot them, I don't know, but again, I don't know how you would. That's a whole other meeting probably.
okay.
Okay. Under new business, the next item is the monthly revenue and expense report.
The standard monthly report is there. In your packets, I handed out this evening. If you have any questions or answers to questions that I can get you, just, if you have them tonight, ask. If not, just shoot me an email. I'll get you some answers for the next meeting or via email.
You all set?
If I could just bug you, Glenn.
Sure.
How is Homestead a revenue?
It's a question for Kurt. Assessing is sort of a dark art, but I believe the homestead is reimbursed by the state depending on, so your certified ratio dictates the level of homestead that you're reimbursed. So I believe because you're in the process of a reval, you probably have a reduced homestead reimbursement from the state, but those are revenues that the state gives depending on how far away from market you are, and it's reimbursed by the state for folks that claim the homestead exemption. But I will confirm and get you a technical answer if I'm sort of off on that one.
We've got a couple of them, and sometimes they just kind of go over my head, like Homestead is one of them. We talked about milfoil being kind of one of them. I mean, I think the milfoil is a little bit different, but there's just a couple of these that just still
Yeah.
kind of throw me through.
And if you have any questions, just again, list them off in an email. I can get you answers and bring it back to the next meeting. So
Very good.
All right. Are you all set? Any other questions?
I would make the comment, really appreciate getting this, and Glenn, you've got us a whole bunch of information that we were looking for months. Not just this, but other things too.
Yeah, and
I want to, I'm quick to criticize, but I also want to say getting the information goes a long ways.
Well, again, my thanks would be to the staff because I generate the reports. I don't do the behind-the-scenes work, so my hat's off to them for,
Well, I
putting that all
mean,
together.
across the board.
Yeah.
It's true. Okay. All right, and then next is the town manager report.
Sure. So I just have a couple things. Last night, the select board adopted the draft budget schedule and confirmed the budget schedule. I will finalize that and now confirm with department heads their availability on workshops so I can start scheduling. But I hope to have you the deliverable to review at least 2 weeks before we introduce. So I'll try to get that to you by February 9th in time for budget introduction at our joint workshop on the 24th. So we kick off on the 24th, and we've got workshops scheduled through March. And then again, depending on how the select board decides on open or secret ballot, that will dictate the deadline for us to draft the warrant articles. So open meeting would mean we have some more time. Secret ballot mean we have a little bit less time. We'd have to draft them a little bit sooner. So those dates may change depending on the structure of your town meeting. But again, that's sort of laid out in the handout from the last time. But I'll finalize this and send it out to you.
All right, thank you.
Ridership, I believe I forwarded, I think his name is Don Libby from RTP's info. You had, I think you started mid-September with the RTP service. So you had about 100 folks riding September, October. that increased to 124. Plan to meet with Don in person at some point, and he'll keep kind of supplying us with that ridership info and see how it's trending. Any questions on that one?
Like I said, those are the things we'd asked for, and you got them right out to us. I appreciate that.
Yep. So in my manager's report last night, we discussed the TIF from last time. It was discussed at this meeting, confirmed with Bernstein Sure, because we'll be having a special select board meeting on the 3rd for recall poverty abatement, and Phil's going to be there. So I said, let's do your TIF primer. So I plan to invite the assessor and the attorney to the February 3rd meeting to discuss TIF. So that will be the next step in that process. County jail funding situation, I believe. I forwarded the chair and vice chair an email from the county administrator about the county budget, so I'll just kind of give you an update. Long and short of it is, if their revenue streams stay consistent with their federal contract for inmates, they are looking at a 5.37% increase. They've received a lot of public pressure to terminate their contract with the federal government to stop housing immigration enforcement inmates. If the commissioners amend that contract, the federal government has said they will terminate the contract. If that happens without federal revenue, you are looking at a 13.77% county increase, which I believe, I can't remember the number. I wanted to say it was 5 million and change.
I think
3.3 million in revenue that they would lose. But again, that depends on the decision of the commissioners. So if members of the public or elected officials desire a certain outcome, I would encourage you to reach out to your county commissioners and let them know how you feel. But that is the county budget. That's all I've got.
And Diana and Fred, I will forward that email to you that we had gotten from Glenn before you joined the committee. So you'll have that information for your background.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is public comment.
Peter Levitt. Just germane to what was just said as far as the potential for a 13.7% increase in county taxes, it does emphasize the fact that anything that we can do to reduce our county tax would be in our best interest financially. It's not the bulk of the budget, but it's a chunk of change. Certainly TIF districts would do that. As far as I do appreciate that I was considered being able to ask questions and participate in the training. I do appreciate why, certainly the attorney's feeling is that he's here to advise you, not me. But what I was getting at as far as the bias question is this. I've served on a number of boards over a number of years, and the conflict of interest, especially where it's mostly tied to fiduciary, it covers that portion or aspect of it. And as far as bias is concerned, I do understand the definition of the word, so I do know that everyone has them. My understanding and training in ethics says that, and what I expressed was, if you do have a bias and you are an ethical person and you've signed your ethics statement, which doesn't say anything about bias, but you're sitting on a board to make a determination that's going to influence the community. If you can't make a clear decision on voting based on the fact that you have bias, then what you're really compelled to do ethically, maybe not legally, is to just say that you really cannot participate in the vote because you have a bias. And that was the point I was trying to make. And I think that oftentimes in the discussion about voting in boards and public service and all that stuff, that's not really discussed, and I can understand why, and that's because no one knows that for sure except the person that's doing the voting. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, and we don't have anyone on Zoom besides Mel, so that's it for the public comment. Budget Finance Committee comment. John?
I just want to thank Don Willard for his time on our committee and his willingness to serve, and also Dennis Morris for time on our committee and for his willingness to serve. So thank you to those. Both you guys have really led us in a direction, and proud to have them both on our boards.
Yes. I agree. Thank you for that, Sean. Any other committee comments? Okay, all right. And the next item is, our next meeting is Wednesday, February 18th. Is that correct? We don't have any budget. No. Then after that would be Tuesday, the 24th, is our joint meeting with the Select Board.
What was that date again?
February 24th. I will also send you the, Diana and Fred, I will send you the budget schedule.
Yeah, and I'll finalize this with the
Oh,
department head
that's
workshops and
right.
everything, because once I know who's here and not here on what days, that this will get cleaned up.
All right, thank you. Does the February 18th work for everyone?
Good with me.
February, yep, I'm all.
Yes. And you'll be on Zoom? Okay. All right. Okay. Is the committee ready to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? All right. All adjourned.